photosynthesis because it's going to take in CO2, utilize that to make the carbohydrates, and then it's going to release O2, which different microbes can utilize inside of the different layers. It's very, very abundant. They grow in almost any habitat that you can imagine. There's 3 different shapes, but I'm not going to test you over the shapes. I really just want you to know the generalized category. They can be found in different types of soils, rocks. They're oftentimes used to identify. Somebody brings something in like, what's the history of this or whatever, and you can actually study the type of relationship to identify where it's from. And it's believed to be eaten by a number of different animals. This is showing the process of how it makes the differing layering that's going to happen within this whole system. You don't have to know the layering. I mean, it does make sense that typically you're going to have a phototrophic layer that's going to have more access to the sun, which is usually on top if it's growing up. Okay? But if something's going to block it, it can grow a different way. If you got like a tree or something up like that, it's going to come over the top of it. It's going to grow a different way, so it's closer to direct sunlight because the pigments have to absorb the photons. Okay. Bacteria and fungi, those are going to be our prime decomposers. Both organisms decompose organic materials. They convert dead plants, animal materials, into forms that plants can actually use. So again, it's contributing to the cycle of the nutrient cycle. Decomposers and nutrient recycling. Decomposition is going to be the breakdown of dead matter and waste into similar compounds that can be directed back into the flow of energy. So remember that energy has a one-way directional flow. It comes from the sun and flows through producers and consumers, and then the producers and the consumers cycle nutrients. Energy itself, though, is one way. It's linear. It is not cyclic. Why is it not cyclic? Because it never goes back to the sun. Absolutely. Does the energy from photosynthesis ever go back to the sun? No. So it is not cyclic. This is white rock. This should definitely say test on it. You should write test on this page because I can show you a picture of this on your exam. And I would expect you to be able to identify it and know exactly what's going on. Some funguses can decay resistant organic materials, such as lichen, better than bacteria. The fungi attack the dark brown color, and then that's going to be like on wood and things of that nature, and they're going to leave behind cellulose, which is colorless, or white, So what would be the substrate for this? It's going to be whatever it's feeding on, which is usually something that you're going to see on like plants or tree bark or something like this. So if I show you an image of this, and I ask you, what is this? I expect you to know that this is white rock, okay? That a fungus is causing this. That the fungus is feeding on the dark colored lichen and leaving behind cellulose, which is white, okay? I'm sure I write all that down. What is this? Oh, I took it from a paper from somewhere. This is showing the evolution of a fungi capable of breaking down a polymer ligand and playing a key role in ending the development of coal deposits and things of that nature. So it does actually change the structure of whatever it's feeding on, the substrate. This is brown rot. Most people are more familiar with brown rot. If I show you a picture of this on your exam, you should be able to identify it. It's associated with a lot of different crops, especially down south. Some fungi and bacteria can cause brown rot by acting on cellulose and leaving behind lichen. So when you see this, it's much more common with a fungus, so I want you to associate this with a fungus. Okay, so again, this is basically just the opposite of what you see here, but this is going to be brown rot. So although brown rot damage in Virginia is typically observed on fruit, which is both of these images, they're just showing you two different. It's the same thing, but they're just showing you the upper one is what has gone on for an incredibly long time. The fungus may also infect the blossoms, which is basically part of the plant. Symptoms on the ripening peach and nectarines may first appear as small circular spots that starts to look like this. And then it keeps going on and on and on until eventually it looks like this. And this is called brown rot. It's going to be the opposite of white rot. So make sure you know this. Yeast, again, one of the very famous fungal categories, is a descriptive word. It's really not taxonomic, okay? It typically just means fungus that grows as a single cell. That's what the word yeast in general means. It used to only be applied to different versions of baker's yeast, and it's used to make what? What is it used to make? It's going to be used to make things like wine and alcohol. It's a facultative anaerobe. It was cultivated by humans because it ferments sugars to alcohol. Okay? And then we're going to end up getting CO2, and bread can rise because of that CO2, so it's going to also have a significant role that nature. Today, microbiologists use the term yeast for any of 100 different species of non-filamentous, so not of hyphae forming, that's why they don't look hairy, single-celled, round, oval-shaped fungi. That's what the word yeast means. The word yeast, again, remember, is it's not like a scientific term. It's not a taxonomic name system. It's just typically going to mean something that's single-cellular. It's usually referencing a fungus. It's typically going to be something that reproduces through budding, and it's not going to be composed of hyphae. It's usually really tiny. That's what the word yeast means. So that's just what I'm kind of telling you guys here, so I want to make sure you understand it. Yeast is not a scientific taxonomic name. Okay? Let's talk about algae. Algae is one of the only truly photosynthetic microorganisms that we're going to talk about it. They're very, very diverse, but they're basically metabolically the same because they're all going to be photosynthesizers. They're going to generate ATP by photosynthesis, which is basically the same as plants. You'll learn that in Bio 111. They're going to contain pigment molecules that are going to be located in the chlorophyll. The light, photon, wavelengths of light are going to come in. They're going to excite electrons. They're going to cause the electrons to bounce into the outer orbitals. As the electrons are falling back down, energy can be released, and this is going to power PS2, PS1, and then the Calvin cycle, which is going to take CO2 from the environment and generate oxygen. A little bit of a refresher for you if you don't remember photosynthesis. Okay? So, they make the precursors from the CO2 through the Calvin-Benson cycle. The Calvin cycle is very similar to the Krebs cycle. Structure and the life cycle can vary. Some are going to be microscopic, cellular, single-celled organisms. Some of them are huge and they're multicellular, and it's hard to tell where they begin or where they end. They can differ from plants in reproduction. They typically don't have the embryo, which would basically be like a seed. Most produce single-cellular asexual spores, and they do have flagella, and they can get around that way. This is a algae cell. So if you see this, I expect that you should be able to identify it. You should know that it's eukaryotic. You should see the flagella. Know that this is going to be an algae. Did the yeast cell that I showed you have flagella? No.
Tình hương chỉ có 800
Where does that CO2 come from? They give off CO2? Don't I give off CO2? Where does the CO2 come from that they need to make carbohydrates? The environment. It's environmental. They give off oxygen. We give off CO2. Biofuels. It can be used to feed. We use as different types of feed sources. Algae is actually unique and does have a lot to offer. I know there's a topic I want to talk to you about.
Waves roll across the miles of open ocean to crash against the shore with a force measuring at times hundreds of pounds per square inch. Surely such a place is unfit for the growth of organisms, yet we find the rocks covered with an abundance of plants and animals. Here is the home of the intertidal algae. They range in size from kelps that they measure many feet in length to microscopic single-celled diatoms. But algae inhabit places other than the ocean. They are also also common in ponds, lakes, streams, and rivers. They grow in the soil, on the branches of trees. Algae live in such unusual places as snow, the backs of turtles, and in the hair of tree sloths. Algae that grow in snow have a red color and may become so numerous that they color the snow red or pink.
Algae. Okay, algae environments. They can basically live anywhere. They can live in the water, they can live on land, they can live in other organisms, they can live on other organisms, and they have many purposes. They can be used commercially, they can be used as a thickening. They're actually, some algae is actually used in agar. Do you guys remember what agar is? That's solidifying agent in plate media. And it can be used as food. It can be used for a number of different things. Where a lot of research is going into algae. Algae is one of the major fixtures of CO2, which is going to eliminate the CO2 from the environment, even that we produce. 80% of the Earth's photosynthesizers is going to be carried out by the ocean's photoplankton, microscopic floating algae, and a few different bacterial species. This is going to be the base of the food chain, photosynthetic, so they cannot live in our bodies and they do not cause diseases. However, there's always some exceptions, and some algae can produce toxins, which can make us sick. Okay, that's different. Okay, this is a certain disease. What is it called? I always mess this one up really bad. I don't know. But it's a weird disease caused by algae. So if I show you these pictures, I expect you to be able to just identify it really and know that it's going to be caused by algae. It ends up showing like these splinterings that you can see. That's basically what you're seeing over here. And they're going to kind of swell up and make these like hard little, what? Cysts? Yeah, sure, yeah. They're pointy. So, yeah, they're like pointy, they like look like this. It's almost like warts, but they're hard. Okay? And it's really, really uncomfortable, and it can be debilitating depending on where it's at. Yeah, cysts can be like, cysts can be pointy, sure. Because there's like, I was thinking of a fluid-filled cyst. That's something you can like smush. Okay? But you can, there are processes for sure. They kind of look like little cysts. Yeah, I look like cysts or like really bad acne or something like that. But it's relatively painful, and there's not much that we can do about that. Okay, classification of algae. There's typically 6 groups. A lot of times classification is based on color. They can form different types of thalli. They do have a wall structure. They are plants, so you are going to have a cell wall. Obviously, they're going to have pigments because the pigments are necessary to collect the wavelengths of light. Pigments participate in photosynthesis, which chlorophylls mediate the basic reactions, converting light energy to chemical energy. Accessory pigments give color characteristics, and that's why you've heard of things like green algae or red algae, and all of those people always call algae by the color. The pigment of algae can contain and dictate the habitat it's going to live in. Why? Because what you see of algae is basically going to be what's reflected, and that's going to affect the pigment inside of the chlorophyll. Like plants have different types of pigments, so they can absorb different wavelengths of light. So if certain types of algae of certain color, they're going to have certain types of pigments, so they're going to grow in certain places on the earth where they can get the specific wavelength of light that they need. Okay? And that's also going to be the basics for the common names of algae that I'm sure you guys have heard of. Okay. What do we have over here? I don't want you guys to worry too much about like the group or the common names. I just want you to know that algae, that they're photosynthetic. Unless I get going and I end up seeing them. But I want you to know that they're photosynthetic. There are multiple groups. They can live in water. They can be single cellular. They can be multicellular. They can live in basically any environment. They live in something, on something. They don't usually cause disease in us, except for that one type of disease. Algae in our future. Single cell diatoms, which diatoms are a type of algae, but sometimes people will group them someplace else. So that's going to kind of depend on the textbook, particularly. But we used to always view diatoms as a type of algae. What did I want you to really see from here is that they look pretty. They look pretty. And then I wanted to talk to you guys about something, but we really have enough time. Oh, okay. So this guy, this French chemist here, he came up with this wicked cool idea. And in France, they have a lot of